Hello and welcome back to the channel. Okay, so from yesterday, very important, do not try to come into Japan, just don't. Over 73 countries are being barred entry from coming into Japan. You cannot enter this country from most places that have airplanes, so just don't even try. Even if you're someone who you're like thinking, oh, I have a working visa or I'm a permanent resident, sorry, even if you have spousal visa, even if you have a permanent residency visa, even if you have a working visa, you can't get into this country. Don't even try. Don't get on a plane to Japan. What will happen is if you somehow manage to get to Japan, you will be kept at an airport for possibly 2 days, maybe with food and water, and then you will be sent back to the country you came from. So that's what's been happening. People will be coming in actually from yesterday, even from before yesterday, people were being denied entry. They weren't aware of the fact that there were travel bans for their countries. At first it was 29 countries and then it became 43 and now it is 73. So the numbers just kept piling up. I actually don't even have a complete PDF of all the countries right now. I have that PDF, but basically just assume you can't get in. If you do somehow manage to get in, like I said, they will keep you in the airport for about 2 days and then they will just punch you back to where you came from. So if you came from South Korea, you tried to come into Japan, they'll put you back in South Korea. You will not necessarily get back to your home country. You don't get to decide where this plane goes. That's it. So even if you have a job waiting for you here in Japan, even if you have, I'm so sorry, a family here in Japan, you're gonna have to make arrangements for yourself in a different country or in your home country. Hopefully it's your home country. Hopefully you're not stranded as one of my friends is in a different country. There are many hotels around the world that are now doing isolation times where you can stay for 2 weeks and there's a package and you can stay in the hotel. Maybe get one of those, or perhaps try and find a way to get to an embassy and see if you can get a charter flight back to your home country somehow. But yes, unfortunately, right now with Japan, there's no way to get in. The only people allowed in are Japanese residents with, of course, a Japan, passport. Japanese residents can come in. Japanese residents are allowed to, Japanese people who have a Japanese passport, they can come in. But also there is one visa that is allowed in, and that's the special permanent residency visa that applies to Koreans who are descendants from back in World War II. There were some Koreans who had left Japan and had denounced their, residency to Japan. And then later there was a peace treaty signed in San Francisco, and these Koreans then were allowed to have a special residency visa that they're descendants of those people, and they can come in. So that is a very specific subset group of people. They are allowed in. But everybody else, no. Don't try it. Permanent residency, no. Don't do it. I know, it seems most logical that if you've lived here for 10 plus years, that you would be able to come into the country. But no. Now, note, when I put this up on Facebook to let people know about traveling, there was some misunderstanding that somehow foreigners are going to be completely removed out of Japan. No, that's not the case. There's not going to be a mass deportation of foreigners. So people who are living in the country right now, you're fine. Don't worry, you're fine. However, if you were intending to leave at any point in the next month, too bad, you really can't. This travel ban from all the other countries is in effect from April 3rd all the way down into April 31st on paper. However, according to the website, it's basically until this blows over. So this travel ban could be extended and extended and extended if it's so chosen by the Ministry of Justice and the Diet and etc. So be aware that is going on. Now, like I said, there's not going to be a mass deportation. They are not kicking us out. Actually, the opposite. There has been news from immigration that actually there is an auto extension of visas here in Japan. So say you are a student, or say you are someone who has a 6-month visa and you cannot stay because you're done with school or you're done with your 6-month thing. Okay, don't worry. There's an automatic 3-month extension to these kinds of visas. So don't worry. You will be okay. However, if you would need to do is still go to immigration, go to your embassy and talk to them about your options, because of course you weren't planning on staying for 3 more months. Maybe perhaps consider like trying to get help from like, you know, your school if you're a daigaku, or if you're a university student, or trying to get help through say some MPOs that are for immigration lawyers. Those could also be helpful. I'll put some links down in the description below to try and help some people out. In terms of the coronavirus cases, they have increased as kind of expected, but the Japanese government is kind of starting sort of to take some measures into place. As I mentioned at like my last point, I think in the last video, Shinzo Abe is giving away 2 masks per household. That was met with some fervent complaints about that. People are very displeased. People have memed this so-called proposed gift to all these households. Yeah, it's not going well. This is my favorite one that I'm gonna show. I think it's like peak meme territory. But then, yeah, people are also like sincerely like upset. A lot of people talking on forums and on Facebook and on Twitter and on all social media that I could find in Japanese. We don't want your masks. We want a lockdown. We don't want this. We would like screw this. We want to have a lockdown. It seems as if people are now really starting to see that as the cases increase, there is a need for it, and also are starting to demand it quite constantly. Yesterday, when Governor Koike did her press briefing, actually, again, the live chat was just full of, why are we not on lockdown? Why are we not on lockdown? It was very intense. So in this press briefing, Governor Koike did basically the same thing as before, talking about the 3 C's, which stands for cluster things. Anyway, so poor ventilation and close spaces, don't talk with like 3 or more people close to you, try to stay a meter apart from people. Okay, so that happened. Also, Governor Koike put out a like thing where she said it is impossible to go into lockdown until there's a national state of emergency. So that was that. And okay, important-ish information and just, you know, like a good review of the situation, except I watched this live and I was distinctly like, okay, so lockdown's not happening again, got it, just a request lockdown for the weekend, please stay at home, don't go out, businesses please close, etc., etc. Okay, all right, fine. But then immediately after she said that, she started talking about 5G towers that they have in Tokyo now. So if you wanted a 5G tower in Tokyo, omedeto, there's a 5G tower now. It's totally what everybody wanted to talk about. And also a housing project of some kind. After that, in the Q&A section, of course, the reporters grilled her about COVID-19 and about all the situations happening. So, you know, I got a little bit more information out of that. But yeah, so that was basically the press briefing from yesterday. Now, you will notice maybe now there are more pictures of Governor Koike in a mask, and Shinzo Abe is wearing one of those fabric masks, of which, by the way, those fabric masks that Shinzo Abe is wearing, you can tell that it's not quite like fitting to his face. It's because they're like masks that I have honestly only seen on elementary school kids here in Japan. They're not really well designed for an adult face, but also I haven't seen, like, most Japanese people from what I understand, and same for me, if the last time I've seen in mass like people wearing them is like 90s J dramas, and apparently that was like a 90s fabric mask thing back in the day. So it's like an old fashioned stylized thing. And yeah, so anyway. But at least Governor Koike and Abe aren't like, say, some governors who, the governor Aichi decided to say, the coronavirus is like the flu. It's better if you pass it on. No. Once again, the coronavirus is not like the flu. The coronavirus is a super spreader. If you give it to people, it's not going to be one person. It's going to be people. It's going to be at least 3, if not more, depending on how often you're traveling around when you're asymptomatic or even symptomatic. It doesn't matter. It's 14 days. It's 2 weeks. I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm good. But also another governor got in the news. Governor Masanori of Ishikawa Prefecture, like back when we had our previous lockdown, told people to please come to Ishikawa Prefecture. You can get away from coronavirus out here. After we just had a really long talk with Kanagawa, Chiba, Tochigi, and Saitama and Tokyo about please do not travel. That seems smart. I hesitate to say incompetence because I don't know what it takes to be a politician, but at the same time, there's a lot going on right now in Japanese government that just makes it look really bad. People are pissed, people are upset, and people are demanding to know why are we not on lockdown? And I understand because I am just as frustrated as they are. In terms of what's going on with the coronavirus situation and COVID-19 at present, right now, it's looking interesting. So there are, and I don't mean that in a good way, sorry, but it's looking like the clusters are definitely increasing, and the clusters keep kind of becoming unknown paths of origin and unknown, like how did this cluster start? How did this person get it? There's some new unknowns to this, which kind of makes sense in my opinion, but once again, not a pandemic expert, not a virologist, none of that. But the way that Japan has been doing things so far has been looking at clusters. So where 2, 3 or more people have tested positive, they have been keeping an eye on that situation, eye on this situation, eye on this situation. 3 to 5 more people are a cluster in this area, right? Well, now we got 13 to 15 new clusters. And these new clusters, once again, like I said, they don't have a known path of spreading. And part of the issue, once again, not a pandemic expert, but part of the issue is that this idea of clusters and trying to isolate and contain a cluster of the coronavirus, and then once they test positive, then treat the most severe, and et cetera, this could work for the flu. This could work for even possibly Ebola. This could work for an infectious disease that spreads at a containable rate. Here's the thing. Coronavirus doesn't work that way. Coronavirus is not like SARS. It's not like H1N1. It's a super spreader. It doesn't even, it doesn't show often until the 10th day of being in your system. So it makes sense to me that the clusters would of course not have a known path of origin. If people are asymptomatic, and quite a few people are, and especially young people, and they're carrying it, they don't know that they have it, and there's nothing to stop them from traveling. The trains are still going, buses are still going, taxis are still going. There's nothing to prevent people from moving about the country. So yeah, that's how you're gonna get new clusters. It seems pretty obvious. But this scientific endeavor that they are attempting to do, where they test only people that they know have been exposed, seems really counterintuitive to the idea of containing clusters as well. It's a whole thing right now where we have clusters and we have this idea of try to prevent clusters. instead of mass testing, which we know works. South Korea did mass testing, and they were able to find where they needed to put their resources. Data gathering, finding what you need to know in order to act is vital in a pandemic. And yet, Japan is still under testing. Actually, the U.S. Embassy even kind of clapped back at them with their latest emails. So we need to have more testing. We need to go into a lockdown, but the government's not willing to do either of these options. It seems as if there's just not going to happen in that regard until people are known to be exposed, have a fever for over 4 days to a week. Then they will test and they will get them seen. So yeah, that's what's happening right now. In terms of, though, going back to the clusters and talking about them, the clusters in Tokyo specifically, at the Friday, the numbers were at 89 cases in Tokyo. I think that number has gone up now, but during the time when I was doing my research, it was 89 cases. Now, here's something interesting. Now, while most of these cases are under 20s, under 30s, 40%-ish, okay. However, the clusters aren't in what I would suspect would be nightlife areas, which is actually someone, I can't remember, but somebody brought up on Twitter, is that it's really interesting that like the government keeps saying it's got to be the live houses, it's got to be the nightlife, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, when the cases don't seem to point to that being true. In the 89 cases, the top place that had the most positive cases was actually not Roppongi, not Shinjuku. It was actually Setagaya. So Setagaya is basically like a finance district, and it's basically just like there's not much out there. I know Setagaya is there, but I don't go there for anything. So Setagaya had 44 cases at the time that I was doing my research. Number 2 was actually Minato. That's interesting. So Minato had 39 cases. So following pretty closely to Setagaya. Once again, Minato, as far as I'm aware, it's like shopping and it's financing, and I think that's about it. There's not really much in Minato. There's a lot in Minato Mirai, which is all the way out in like Kanagawa and Yokohama area, but Minato-ku? I know a friend who works there, but honestly, I can't think of like that place as a rowdy place to go for nightclubs and things. I could be wrong about that, please let me know. But then underneath that, even Suginami at 28 cases. Suginami is, once again, also not a rowdy place. That's not a place where I think, oh yeah, that's got nightlife going on for it. Like, I wouldn't go there for a party, personally. I would go to, not Roppongi, actually. I hate Roppongi. But if you were thinking of party life, Roppongi is like the first place to go. Right behind it, places that I go most often, is Shinjuku. But Shinjuku was at 22 cases, which is interesting because that's where Kabukicho is. That's where Golden Guy is. That's where the central hub. So Shinjuku has one of the most traveled places in all of Japan. It puts in millions of people there every day. It's one of the most traveled places in the world, and yet it's at 22 cases. It's very odd. These clusters in Tokyo don't seem to match with the idea that it's only the nightlife that's making this happen. So, I don't know. Of course, avoid going to bars. Of course, avoid going to nightclubs. And of course, avoid going to izakayas. However, the data seems to suggest that it's not those places in particular that's causing this going on. So, please, be careful. Don't go to nightlife places. Don't go to karaoke. Just stay at home. So with the coronavirus cases, we now have also got the government kind of starting to do things. So one of the problems that they had with COVID-19 is that every single time someone tested positive for COVID-19, these people were kept at a hospital. Like, they had to be hospitalized. That was the way they were going about it. Problems included when you had mild cases of COVID-19. So say you only had a fever or a dry cough and that was it. well, then you still have to stay at the hospital. Now, with the hospital bed shortages that are starting to go around in the country, Japan has decided to change that. They're instead not going to keep people at hospitals anymore. Instead, they're going to have designated hotels where they will have quarantine section chiefs who will assign people to these hotels, and they will be kept there under quarantine for 2 weeks or more, depending, until they are no longer going to carry the virus to others, I guess. I think honestly, I have a lack of trust and confidence in the Japanese government. I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. The idea of masks and, oh yeah, I forgot, Abe also was giving out fish and meat coupons for people. Yeah, as a vegetarian, doesn't really resonate with me as like help, but cool. Oh, actually, one more thing. The government has said that they are going to give households 300,000 yen each for those who have lost money due to COVID-19. So that's about $2,250-ish if I think that's right. So about that amount of money for households who need help. But there's an asterisk. Unfortunately, the government decided that the people who don't deserve this money would be sex workers and hostesses of bars and things like that. So, this doesn't come as a terribly big surprise considering it's a conservative party, but at the same time, sex workers need to eat too. Also, they're probably losing work with all the COVID-19 stuff going on. They can't exactly do sex work when you have to deal with people in person, up close and personal. So we have a petition going around of people who would like to see that taken off, and just anybody in any household who's lost money due to COVID-19 can apply for this. I'm supporting this, honestly. I think that it's kind of ridiculous that you punish sex workers for something completely out of their control. Also, we're not talking about, we're not talking about giving sex traffickers money. We're talking about giving people who are doing legal sex work, such as pornography, such as the bar hostesses stuff. It's so hypocritical because you know that these politicians have at some point in their male adult lives have gone to a hostess club or have probably watched porn. But no, we can't let them have the money to support themselves during a time of crisis. That's ridiculous. Not bitter, I'm fine. So that is going around. Please sign the petition. It's down in the description. Please, please, please sign it so that we can see people have money. Sorry. Okay, or last thing. Okay, so wash your hands. Stay at home if you can. If you go to work, go home. Don't go to parties. Don't go to anything. Just go to work and go home. Stay at home. If you are at home, that's where you are least likely to get sick. When you're at home, wash your doorknobs. If you got alcohol wipes, good. If you don't, soap and water. Just do something like wash any areas that you touch regularly, that being your keyboards and your phones. Phones are very, take an alcohol wipe and wipe down your phone. It's full of germs in the first place, and etc., etc. Whatever places you commonly touch or are holding onto or something, wipe it down with soap and water or some alcohol or something. Just, try to keep things as clean. Try to keep things as clean as possible, and try to stay safe and try to stay healthy. Okay, so I'm going to log off and I'm going to edit this, and then I'm going to relax somehow. I don't know how, but I'm going to try. Alright, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, please do. I'm nearly at 100 subscribers. Whew, it's a little bit scary. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye!